Here. Because it just looks awesome. I want the other people to see. There, all right. We're good. Hallelujah. We're going to be in Joshua again today. We're going to be in Joshua chapter 4. And we're going to title this one, Crossing Over Jordan. Because that's what it's about. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I know. Now, how many of you, I go through this, right? About once every 4 weeks. The SOPEDC, Standard Operating Procedure, Everyday Carry for Shofarians, includes a flashlight. So no one should have a problem reading. And those of you on phones, I know you're not going to have a problem reading. All right. See, that's just one of the reasons. A flashlight should be part of what you carry all the time. Women, you have it easy. Most of you carry purses. Men, you're just going to have to get one that fits in your pocket. All right. Chapter 4 of Joshua. Verse 1, and it came to pass when all the people were clean passed over Jordan, that Yahweh spoke unto Joshua, saying... So there's a couple interesting things here, I think. One, there's that phrase again, they passed clean over, right? That means they passed all the way over, but to me it sounds very southern. I think these were southern Israelites who did this. They passed clean over Jordan. But it says the Lord, Yahweh, spoke to Joshua. I find that very interesting because Joshua, because we're going to see here, Joshua clearly hears what the Lord tells him. Joshua was listening for that. Joshua had an ear for Yahweh. He was paying attention. Even though all this stuff is going on, he still has part of his focus on Yahweh, and the Lord spake to him. Now the other thing is the people, they've all passed clean over. They've gotten to the other side of the Jordan River. They've made it. Woohoo! We made it to the promised land. And yet they all know, and we're going to read that here in a little bit, they all know there's a fight coming. They all know there is much work to be done, even though they have entered the promised land. There is much to do. Verse 2. Yahweh spake unto Joshua, saying, take you 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe, a man. Now go back here to chapter 3, verse 12. I told you we were going to get to this. It says in chapter 3, verse 12, now therefore take you 12 men out of the tribes of Israel, out of every tribe a man. And we went over that last time. I said we're not going to cover that now, but we'll cover it later. We're going to cover it today. So Yah is telling Joshua, you take one man from everybody in Israel, one per tribe. Command ye them, verse 3, saying, take you hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and you shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where ye shall lodge this night. So where the priests were standing in the middle of the Jordan River, holding the ark, the whole time all of Israel, is crossing across, go there, grab 12 stones, bring them out here, and when we're all going to set up camp tonight, you guys are going to set those stones up. I was thinking about this, and a conversation we were having out here earlier. All right, Benjamin, send a guy. Dun, 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 dun. Everybody sends a guy, and they tell him, all right, hey, everybody grab a stone, bring it out here. You know there was a contest who could carry the biggest stone. Right? Yeah. It's like, oh, Shlomo got that stone, watch this. Whoa! And so I was thinking about these stones, but even with them, and I do believe they probably tried to, don't let that tribe show up our tribe. Don't you grab some little pebble while Cody's over there grabbing some rock this big. Even with them trying to get decent-sized rocks, a man's still a man. And I know Cody has for a living lifted rocks, right? Out of creeks, put them on the pallets or on the trucks or whatever. The brothers who were working out here moved a lot of rocks. Rocks are heavy. I mean, it sounds like a duh, but rocks are really heavy. And I'm telling you, I don't think there was a rock bigger than this. How many people here have seen the strongman competition? where they carry all manner of heavy things, right? And they have that one where they've got to take these stone spheres and put them up on a wall. Well, those things are only about this big, and these are strongest men in the world. They're huge. And so these rocks aren't that big. They're not going to build a Stonehenge, in other words, is what I'm saying. But we're going to keep going on here. And Joshua called 12 men, whom he had prepared of the children of Israel out of every tribe a man. And so every tribe sends a representative to do this task. We have a task as a nation of Israel. The nation of Israel is comprised of 12 tribes. We have a task to do, and I need one guy from every tribe to show up. We don't have tribes in Shofar Mountain, but we have camps. And there's a time coming when it could be like, hey, we need one representative from each camp for this thing. And it's just the order of things and how things work. And Joshua said unto them, pass over before the ark of Yahweh your Elohim into the midst of Jordan, and take ye up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according unto the number of tribes and the children of Israel. Now when it says pass over before the ark of Yahweh, does somebody have a different word? Everybody's Bible says before. It's in front of. Passover in front of the ark. Because to me in English it sounds a little like, are we going in front and they're moving now? No, go Passover before them, Passover in front of them. That this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what mean ye by these stones? Then ye shall answer them, that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of Yahweh. When it passed over Jordan, the waters of Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be a memorial unto the children of Israel forever. And so the reason you're gathering these stones, these big heavy stones, and they're not just taking them to the edge of the water, they're taking them to where they camp that night. So you know they moved forward a fair piece before they set up camp. We're going to set them up in here so that the children of Israel, when they see these stones later, and they say, hey, what's this little thing of stones right here? You can take the opportunity and tell them what the Father did and how he brought the people across the Jordan. And so that got me thinking, there's a lot of parents here, and I didn't even think we were going to have this many children here today. I was actually picturing a lot of y'all remembering your kids when they were young, but now we have the opportunity with parents of young children. How many of you take the opportunity to tell your children about the glories of Yah, about Yah's mighty works, about the miracles he has performed for his people? Because that's what this is. This is a reminder, and it's actually not even a reminder for the parents. It's like a clue, so the kids will see it, and the kids will ask their parents, and now you know what you got to do. That's your trigger phrase. What are these stones for? Well, let me tell you about those stones, son or daughter or whatever. We need to, as parents, take the time not just to take our kids to services, not just to read them stories and stuff like that, but to really point out the wonderful things that Yah has done for Israel, and that we are Israel. And look what he's done for us. And so that's what this is here. The why and the answer. So, 8. The children of Israel did so as Joshua commanded. They took up 12 stones out of the midst of Jordan, as Yahweh had spoken unto Joshua, according to the number of tribes of children of Israel, and they carried them over with them unto the place where they lodged, and they laid them down there. Well, I'm going to tell you about that place in a little bit. 9. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests stood, which bear the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there unto this day. So this is another 12 stones. Joshua goes out to the middle of the river. Now that's where they grabbed 12 stones and took them out where the priests were standing. He goes in that direct area and he piles up 12 stones himself. I was thinking about that. I'm thinking Joshua supervised that, to put those stones there. And it says they're still there to this time. That's as of the writing. of Joshua. No archaeologist has found these 12 stones. No one has found the 12 stones that they set up, we're going to find out in Gilgal. No one has found those yet that I'm aware of. But again, they're small stones. I mean, relatively speaking, compared to the stones here on Shofar Mountain, whatever a man can carry isn't that big. But it's another 12 stones that Joshua sets up. All right. Where are we? 10? Yep, 10. For the priest which bare the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan, in the middle of the Jordan, until everything was finished that Yahweh had commanded Joshua to speak unto the people, according to all that Moshe commanded Joshua. And the people hasted and passed over. Now think about that. I don't know how much the ark weighed, but these guys are standing there. Now it is dry land. They walked out into a rushing river and then it stops. But they're standing there holding this ark while all of Israel passes over that river. And then these brothers got to come back and grab stones. I bet you they're thinking, anytime now, Joshua. Anytime, right? They want to get going. But that showed the dedication, I think, of the priesthood, and they're drawing strength from their task. And sometimes we have difficult tasks to do. Sometimes you think about the task, they're standing in the middle of the Jordan. And at first it was probably kind of cool and exciting because they walked out into it. We talked about last time, it was probably a little bit scary for them. The Jordan's in flood stage. But as they go out there, the waters start piling up and it stops. And they're like, wow, that's pretty cool. It's because the Ark of Yah is here. Yah is here and these waters are stopping. But come on, those people didn't pass over in 15 minutes, right? They're standing there. And now it becomes one of those mundane tasks that they're tasked to do ultimately by the Father. And yet, look how important it is. That's how Israel could cross over dry shod, right? There's no water there where they're crossing over. It's because these priests were doing their job to hold the ark. And sometimes in life, we have things that seem boring, that seem mundane. But man, they're important so that other things can get done. And so never sell yourself short because you think what I'm doing is just this boring old task. If it's for the Father, it's for the Father. And it's very important. All right. And it came to pass, when all the people were clean passed over, means finished passed over, the ark of Yahweh passed over, and the priests in the presence of the people. And the children of Reuben, and the children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh passed over, armed before the children of Israel, as Moshe had spake unto them. About 40,000 prepared for war passed over before Yahweh unto battle to the plains of Jericho. And so of those tribes that passed over, you'll remember that their land was on the other side of Jordan. Their land was over there, and their wives and children and old people stayed in the land. But their mighty men, their warriors, they had to deploy. They had to go deploy to battle while everyone stayed on the other side. And I'm telling you, they had just got the other side. They had just got their land on the other side of Jordan as their little share of the promised land. And now they're being told, Moshe told them, you guys, sure, you have this land over here, it's all copacetic, but you got to go across the river and fight for your brothers because there's a fight coming. And so think about the sacrifice on both sides of that coin. The people staying in their land, all their strong guys, like the guys who were building this fellowship hall, all those guys are gone. So now we've got this new land. Well, heck, how am I going to get my house built? How am I going to do this? What about this? Who's planting the garden? The men are all off at war. Think about the men who are leaving. All right, we got this land. I got my family tent set up, and now I've got to go first across the river into the land of the unknown, this promised land, and my family's back there all alone. And yet they went forward to do that. How many people did it say it was?
40,000.
So 40,000. When I was in the 25th Infantry Division back in the 80s, the entire division had 10,000 people in it. So this is the equivalent of 4 divisions of soldiers passing across the Jordan. And it says they passed across prepared to fight, right? Let me find that. There we go, verse 13. They passed over before Yahweh unto battle to the plains of Jericho. So they came over ready to fight. We've talked about this before. The Father promises the land. Here's the promised land. It's for you. I'm giving you this. You came out of bondage in Egypt. You had nothing. You get to travel around the desert for 40 years. Now you get to arrive at the promised land. Except you have to fight for it. They're fighting for the promised land. They're prepared. They come across prepared to fight for the land. They're in battle array. And so then the question becomes to us, are you ready to fight? See, so many of us think we like to grab onto certain aspects of what we believe with the Israelites and the way and all these different things. And the things that feel kind of uncomfortable to us, it's like, no, we don't want to think about that. Are you prepared to fight for the promised land? We're going to talk about that. It was given to them by Yah. It was given to them by Yah, but they still had to fight for it. It wasn't given to them on a silver platter. There's a Chinese phrase that I used to lie and go, it goes, "Worship, bao, Chai Ting." I have no idea how it goes, but one of my guys used to know it in Chinese, and it sounded like that. And what it means is standing on a mountaintop, mouth agape, waiting on a roast duck. It's like, hey, the Father gave me the promised land. I guess he's just going to move me right in and give me a Mercedes and an Escalade and a nice house and an orchard and a barn. It's the same thing as those of us who have come out of her, my people, and are trying to live some kind of pioneer-style lifestyle, some agriculturally based lifestyle. And so many people out there in YouTube land think, oh yeah, I'm just going to go do that and it's easy and that's all you guys do and it's just so much fun. And those of us who are doing it know there's a lot of work and sweat and everything else that goes into it. And there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it. And we don't have to fight anybody. They did. They did all of that, plus they had to fight. We have a fight coming up. All right. So they pass over, ready for battle. Verse 14, on that day, Yahweh magnified Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him as they feared Moses all the days of his life. This is the day, this is the event through which Joshua arrives as the leader of Israel. I had a friend that used to talk about in the military, you're confronted with what he calls these nanoseconds of success or failure. And you just have a short thing to do, and you either succeed and get rewarded in laurels, or you fail and you fall by the wayside. And this was one of those things for Joshua, from a human standpoint, in the eyes of the people, getting all the people across the Jordan. Now we know he did that because he trusted in Yah, and he followed the directions of Yah, and he did exactly what he told him to do. But in the eyes of the people, if that hadn't happened, Joshua wouldn't be their leader anymore. So he has arrived on this day. Verse 15, and Yahweh spake unto Joshua, saying, command the priests that bear the ark of the testimony, that when they come up out of the Jordan. Tell them to come on up out of the Jordan. And Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, come ye up out of Jordan. I think a lot of people could just read over that, just pass over that and go, okay, God told him to tell the priest to come up, and then he tells the priest to come up. Big deal. What's the big deal? The big deal is this. This is a pretty big operation to get these people across the Jordan. That a great place to fight Israel. Do you remember the two spies that we talked about a couple weeks ago? And they go into the land, and then the king's people chase them, and they go all the way to the Jordan looking for where they're going to cross, and then they come back and they couldn't find them. That's a great place to fight when they're trying to cross the river. So it's a pretty intense time for Joshua while he's observing this and getting this done. And so he leads, he commands, he tells the priest, come on up out of the water, but he waits on Yahweh to tell him what to do. So he's still in command, but he's focused on the Father, and he's listening for the Father to tell him, which is not me saying he's being indecisive or he's waiting too long, but a lot of men would just say, okay, I got all my people across. Hey, come on guys, come on across. Like that, because he thinks it's done. But he doesn't. He's not resting on his own. Look at me, I'm a great leader of Israel. I got all the people across the river. Hoo-hoo! All right guys, come on, get out of the river. No, he waits on Yah to tell him. And that's an important aspect. We're all leaders at some level. Whether we're leaders of our house or leader of our project that we're involved in or something, we're all leaders. And while we may be in charge, and if we are the leader, we should take charge, we have to focus on Yah. And we have to have an ear listening for him to tell us what to do or what not to do. And it came to pass, when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of Yahweh were come up out of the midst of Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up onto the dry land, that the waters of Jordan returned unto their place, and flowed over all the banks. Remember, it was in flood stage, as they did before. This is nothing short of a miracle. This is a miracle of Yah that this happened. And that's why the father had Joshua have the guys get the stones and put the 12 stones in a pile, so that in years to come, when the kids say, what's this pile about? You can say, hey, check out what the father did for us. Right there, right over there, when you get to the river, that whole river stopped flowing in flood stage, and we all got to walk across on dry land. And the little kids are like, no way! And it's like, oh yeah, and the priests were out there with the ark, and they were holding it, and the father held the waters, and they all piled up. It was a flat-out miracle. And it's something that a lot of people, I think, don't consider when they think, name three miracles three miracles that you know about. And they don't list that one, but this is a really big one. And it came to pass that the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they camped in Gilgal at the east border of Jericho. When did they come out?
10th day of first month.
What's on the 14th day of the first month?
Passover?
Passover. Just before Passover, they're coming out, and then unleavened bread and all that's coming. So they come out, and it says they set up in Gilgal. Gilgal is now in what's called the West Bank, which is the Palestinians are living there currently. And it was to be the base of operations, really, for Israel's conquest of the Promised Land. They kind of set up in Gilgal. They've got their 12 stones that they set up. And this is where, from here, we're going to go take this Promised Land that the Father gave us. Now, the interesting thing is, since we know that Gilgal became their base of operations, and that's just from reading ahead, to conquer the Promised Land, the first thing they do when they get there is these 12 guys come up and they set up the stone altar, if you will, the stone arrangement, so that the kids can ask that we've already talked about. And so the first thing they're doing is honoring Yah. They're taking time to build something for Yah, even though they know, man, Jericho's right over there, and those guys don't want us in their land. They're like, nope, let's do these stones, let's talk about this stuff. I thought that was pretty interesting also. 22, I think. Nope. 20. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan did Joshua pitch in Gilgal. And he spake unto the children of Israel, saying, when your children shall ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what mean these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over Jordan on dry land. For Yahweh your Elohim dried up the waters of the Jordan from before you, until you were passed over, as Yahweh your Elohim did in the Red Sea, when he dried up from before us, until we were gone over. That all the people of the earth might know the hand of Yahweh, that it is mighty, and that you might fear Yahweh your Elohim forever. So this is interesting. We already read this. We already read why we're doing the 12 stones. He's already told Joshua once. Now he's telling Joshua twice. What do I always say when we repeat things like that? Why does he repeat it? Because it's important. It's just like you tell your kids something over and over and over again. And my kids, when they started getting a little bit older, would say something like, Dad, you already told us that. And I'd be like, yeah, that's because it's important. So Joshua is told twice to tell the people this, why we're doing this, so that the children may know. But guess what? We're being told twice. See, because we're reading it twice, that we hear this. So the stones are there so that the children will ask. The children will ask, why are these stones here? And we explain to them, our children are our future. Our children have to be raised with the fear of Yah and the understanding of Yah, and the understanding of how special they are as the chosen people of Yah. Sometimes as adults we get a little bit jaded over that stuff, and we're like, yeah, I know. But kids, it's an important thing. And this whole thing, it says in verse 22, so that you let your children know. Da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. But then look at this, verse 24. It's also so that all the people of the earth might know the hand of Yahweh, that it is mighty, that you might fear Yahweh your Elohim forever. So it's not just for Israel to know. It's for everybody of the earth to know that Yahweh is Elohim, that He's in charge and He can do these wondrous things. And in fact, that word had already gotten out. If you remember when the two spies were talking to Rahab, she's like, whoa, I heard all about you guys and that, Yah is doing these things for you. And she starts worshiping Yah. Her whole household turns to following Yah. And so, summing up, I think some important points are that we remember our history. We are now Israel. Most of us grafted in to Israel, but then those are our people, all the way back there. And that's our history, and our children need to know about this. If I was doing homeschooling right now, I know we would do a little thing with 12 Little Rocks. That would be a homeschooling task this week coming up, where we would cover it with them and talking about the stones. And then the other thing we have to remember is all the wonderful things, the miracles that Yah has performed for His people, for us, His people. And not just the Red Sea, but also the Jordan in this case. And so, we have to teach our children. We have to teach each other. Iron sharpens iron. We have to discuss these things with people. We can teach people out there who just have an ear to hear about this. I guarantee the average person out there who's going to church tomorrow doesn't have an in-depth understanding of what happened right here that we talked about today. Why? Why do we have to remember? Why do we have to teach this stuff? We teach it so we remember. We remember so that we can draw from it, so that we can draw strength and courage from it when we find ourselves in similar situations, in difficult situations, in scary situations. We can say, hey, the Father has me. He's got me in the palm of His hand. I'm underneath the feathers, the wings, the tzitzit. I've got protection. If He be with us, who can be against us? And we have to, it's not just platitudes, but it's like, look what He's done, look what He's done, look what He's done. Because there are times coming in our future, whether it's you personally or it's us as a group or us as a nation or whatever. Who said these are the time that try men's souls? Was that Churchill? I think it was. There's times coming when you're going to have to reach down deep. And what you should be grabbing onto is the promises of Yah. Standing, standing. We need to stand on the promises of Yah. And we have to remember. So, another thing. Crossing over Jordan to the promised land. That's kind of a euphemism, right? For dying. Right? Well, He's in glory. He's passed over. Right? He's passed over the Jordan. He's in the promised land. So, pass over the Jordan is kind of like death. People don't take it this deep, but that's really what they're talking about. And then now He's in the promised land. It's like being resurrected with Yeshua. Right? So that's kind of how the euphemism goes. But think about it. Some people also look at it as passing over Jordan to the promised land is kind of like going through tribulation and then entering into the millennial reign of Yeshua. Right? None of that. Just like this passing over the Jordan happens without trust in Yah, and none of that happens without strife, without conflict, without fighting. That happens. We read about it. We spent a lot of time in Revelation before. It's going to happen again. And so, just like the Israelites came across that river, arrayed for combat, arrayed for battle, ready to fight. And 40 years ago, they were slaves. They were making bricks and stuff. And now they're coming across this river in battle order. You have to be ready to fight. I'm not a soldier. Neither were they. But they went with the strength of Yah, and they fought. It may be the promised land. It may be promised by Yah, but we're going to have to contest it. We're going to have to fight for it. whether it's little things or big things. Nothing is free. It's given to us by Yah. Well, that's free. Yeah, but you still got to contest for it. You still have to fight for it. You have to do your bit. You have to do your work. And through it all, the key to success is listening to, like Joshua did, the Father, obeying the Father, doing what the Father tells us to do, and ultimately trusting in Him. Let's pray.